preparing to live stream live on YouTube, even though it doesn't show me that. I'm going to go with it is.
It says live for me too.
All right. Well, I'm going to hope that, oh, yep. Let me just mute that though, so we don't end up. There we go. All right. We look like we are live. So we are here for Connection with Spirit. Larissa Russell.
Deb Epstein.
That's right. We are here to share a conversation. And if you are here joining us, we would love it if you put a note in the chat and said hi. I know we're probably a minute or two early, but if you wanted to add a note in the chat, that would be wonderful. And Deb and I were just talking. We have these amazing conversations, and this is why we decided that we would do these shares. Mm-hmm. And last month we missed one because you were traveling, and tomorrow I'm traveling. So we snuck this one in just in time. But talking about, so many things.
Yeah.
Spreading love in the world, coming from a place of love, and just, can we just get along, people?
Yeah. Can we just get along? Can you? Yeah. Because we were kind of like using your voice, making a stand for you, power, like power dynamics, power over versus being in your power, truth, your truth, my truth. What is the truth? It's all rich topics. And I see people popping in. So if you want to say hello as you're coming in, we'd love to see who's here. And let's have a lively discussion about, making a stand, like what's important to you. And what we were talking about too, we were talking about actually last week about, the bigger picture, and how the world is right now, where we're sitting in the world, and the just the hatred that's going out there, and hatred to control, to get a certain way of being under control, and making it wrong and bad, and not dehumanizing, really dehumanizing humans, and it's like, I'm carefully choosing my words because it's our authenticity that we're not being allowed to express. And that comes in many different ways and many different forms. And as an artist, and one of the things that I when I have a conversation about this kind of topic with someone in my family who is on, let's just say on the right side, on the right side, I'm more neutral. I haven't picked, Republican, Democrat. I'm more of an independent. And also I feel like there's a lot of things that don't belong being politicized, because I think it distracts from what, the government's job really is, but anyway, it's, as an artist, I don't want my voice hushed. I want to be able to express myself and my thoughts and my beliefs as I experience the world. I want to share my viewpoint with the world, not from a place that it's the only viewpoint or it's the only right viewpoint. I want to hear yours too. And when I do that, if I want to take advantage of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, then I get to allow others to do the same, regardless as to whether I agree or not. It's being able to listen and experience someone else's stand for themselves, and that's kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah. Hi, Rose. Thank you. Oregon.
Oh, nice.
It's interesting too, just thinking about that, because you and I were having this conversation earlier about, we want the freedom of speech, but at what point is there a limit to what you can speak?
Yes.
Because, is hate a freedom of speech, or is disagreement a freedom of speech? Or where's the line when it comes to speaking your mind? But you speak your mind and you're pointing negatively towards other people. But in what way? Because I am now speaking my mind, maybe negatively, about other people.
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel like I'm spreading hate? No, but they might not think they're spreading hate either. So, like, where are those lines that when we think about freedom of speech? And I know I don't live in the States. Freedom of speech is very big for Americans. And I mean, we have freedom of speech in a different way. It's not so much of a, a right. we have a few more parameters around it, but also, we hear often about those God-given rights. And it's like, who's God? Whose God-given rights are we? And is hate speech a freedom of speech? Like there's just so many things that it's like, who gets to decide what's right and wrong? But then ultimately, can we not just be nice to one another?
Yeah.
Then we don't have to decide. We don't have to decide who's right and wrong. It's like, just come from a place of love. And maybe some people think they are coming from a place of love, right? So
yeah,
I get so caught up in it because, hello, Michelle. Hello, Karen. Welcome to UK,
thanks for
Western
popping
Washington.
in. Yeah.
And I'm just gonna, I think most people know this. Well, maybe not. Many people know this story about, I had a little rant, San Diego. Had a little rant not that long ago on Facebook about, the hate going on. And it was directed at Americans. I'm sorry, but as a Canadian watching what's going on, it's really hard. We have hate here too. So don't think that I think we're better. No, but it was just, there was a lot going on. And so I wrote an email to my list, my healing side, thinking that if you're following me as a healer, that you probably think fairly similar to how I think. And then was shocked to find out that no, that's not the case. Because I said, can we just come from a place of love? And does, skin color matter? Does who we love matter? Does, like, people are dying. Like, we're telling our, children that to give birth because we, no more abortions. Doesn't matter what the case is. We're talking about, women giving birth to dead babies because they can't abort them, and they know as soon as they're born they're going to die. We're talking about, Black Lives Matter, and, the whole back and forth between all lives matter, Black Lives Matter. Yes, technically, all lives matter. However, coming from different stances, whether we believe in the same book or not, right? Christian, pagan, Muslim, whatever it is. And then also our LGBTQ plus community, who have an 8 times higher suicide rate for their youth because of the hate. So, I just wrote what I thought was a fairly well-worded email. Can we just be nice to one another? Can we just come from this place of love? To find out, no. Now, some of the people who messaged me, felt the need to message me, I think honestly felt they were coming from a place of love. I was wrong. And they very lovingly wanted to tell me why I was wrong. They didn't want me to go to hell. They didn't want me to, all of those things. And I don't personally believe in hell. So I was like, okay, like I sort of get where you're coming from, but you seem to be missing the message of coming from this place of love so that everyone can walk on this planet together. Everyone has the same freedoms, same, I don't know what the word is that I want to use, but the same ability to move safely in the world. And that was missed in the messaging. And I found that really interesting because I consider myself fairly open in my beliefs. maybe I need to be more open about
Mhm.
them. Because, one person even said to me, how dare I use this platform? And I was like, oh, wait a second. Hello, my platform, my business. So there was, a little bit of that.
Right of life. Yeah. Hi, Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The idea that we can make these decisions for other people, and there's only one right way. Do I agree with everyone and everything that they do? No. Do I think that they should be stopped from doing it? They're not hurting other people. They're not hurting themselves, not hurting other people. Then no, I don't
Mhm.
agree with everything, but I also don't get to make a decision for them.
Right. Right. And
And
why does it bother anyone else so much?
yeah.
What is it? What is the trigger for that other person? I mean, it goes a lot deeper, than religious beliefs, um, it is interesting because, I come from, my family members have those types of beliefs, and I sit and listen to it, and it's interesting to hear it, not believe it, but then do I want to start that? Do I want to pick that open? It's you get to say what you want to say, and it's like vomit and vitriol coming out of your mouth, and I get to listen to it, but I know the minute I say something counter to that, it's going to explode something up. And
Mhm.
then it's the choice I make. Do I want to open that up right now? Or do I want to just like finish the meal and move on?
Mhm.
And it's a choice all the time. It's a choice in every moment. And the choice I make is very different every time. You know, it's an interesting, I mean, growing up in that, and I didn't grow up fully in that because I was like in 10th grade or so when my parents became believers like that. And it's been an evolutionary process of them getting deeper and deeper. And then they moved down south, which it really amplified down south, because then different areas are very,
Mhm. Mhm.
very different. And to hear the shifts and changes, like almost like doubling down and making a deeper, like getting deeper roots in what I can kind of label as hate, because it's hate. And to me, and hate with the word God on top of it. God hates. Well, are you the spokesperson for God now? God hates people that do this. Well, I don't know. What I've read about it is that it's, you know, up to God, right? And God is spirit. To me, God is not a human being dressed up in, an elevated position somewhere in the cosmos. And it's a he, and he's out there somewhere. And then I get, whatever I have happening in my life is because I was either a good girl or a bad girl. But to me, that's what I see playing out in religion, where I hear it in my mom all the time, not even in like what we're talking about now, just in everyday life. God's going to fix this for me. God's going to help me through this, God. And it's like, I get it, but I really think like, yeah, we take the action and spirit is moving everywhere,
Mhm.
and it's not dependent on, did I do the right thing? I think we kind of look at it from a standpoint, I'm inherently wrong, or I'm inherently bad, and I'm inherently messed up, because that's like the original sin programming,
Mhm.
right? And so I'm always seeking a way to be better, and that's the ego starts to take over. And then if I'm feeling this way about myself, that I'm just a miserable, lowly human that's always that's always inherently wrong and bad. Oh, well, that person over there, they're surely worse than me. So that makes me elevated, and I feel a little bit better. So I get to hop on the bandwagon against that. We're over here, we're good. And so I hope I made some sense there, because I
Mhm.
felt like it was kind of opening up as I was talking. Um, as that happens with me sometimes, but I think that it's so dynamic. There isn't like one thing about it, but when you come down to love, connecting with our heart and operate from that place of love doesn't have judgment in it.
Yeah. And I know as humans, we feel judgment, and it is actually necessary, right? Because we judge situations, we judge people. It's a safety mechanism we have. That's why we judge. So it's not like we're going to stop judgment, but it's like, at what point is the judgment skewing what's actually going on, right? You've judged the situation as such, but is it truth?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I have a thing about groups of teenagers. They terrify me. Teenagers get together, and I've raised teenagers, and my grandkids are almost teenagers now. But there's this thing about groups of teenagers, and when I see groups of teenagers on the street, I will like go the other direction. I'm assuming there's a trauma back there that I haven't really addressed, but I just find like teenagers can be so mean. And so it's like, I do not want like group mentality with teenagers.
Yeah.
I know. But the judgment, and I recognize that I don't know these people. Like I can logically see that I don't know these people, right? I don't know who they are. They've given me no reason to think that, them personally, but I will go the other direction because of probably a past trauma. What I don't do then is call out all teenagers as being horrible people, because they're not, right? And I can see that, I can recognize that in myself. And I think that discernment seems to be missing. That discernment seems to be missing for people nowadays. We've become so polarized in the right, wrong, black, white. Your country is down to two parties. Our country, for the most part, is down to two parties. And everything has become very polarized. And so there's like my way and your way. And there's not anything in between. And when we can start to look at the fact that we might have these judgments, we might have these biases, but recognizing that it's ours and we are not necessarily correct. We can learn from one another. But like I said at the beginning, at what point is the line drawn, right? There's some people, I'm just going to shut it down because it's like, I know that we're not going to have a discussion because it's not going to happen. I can tell from our interaction, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But other people, I'm gladly debate with you, have discussions with you, all of those things. And you can have a completely different outlook than I do. And so it's really allowing space, right? Allowing space to learn from one another. Doesn't mean you're going to necessarily change my mind. Doesn't mean you're necessarily going to redirect me, but just allowing that space to know that there are.
We just need to be heard, all of us, I'm looking in the chat and I wanted to read something from Carol Hayes. Hey, Carol. She's a good friend of mine. She says, to believe the creator can hate and thereby humans should hate on the behalf of the creator disempowers the believer and disempowers everyone else around them. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. That's a beautiful insight. Yeah.
And we very much get caught in the, I say this often, we love everyone who's just like us, right? Like there's this thing that we have about, oh, of course we're open and we love everyone who's just like us. And it can be very difficult. I know there's people that I don't agree with. There's people that I don't particularly maybe even like. but I also don't need to, inject myself into their life,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to stop them from doing what they're doing as long as they're not hurting someone.
Mm-hmm.
So where, yeah, where are the boundaries that seem to be missing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
With
it's such a big thing that's happening too, because what's playing out in our collective too. I mean, when we look at it from the energetic point and from an evolutionary spiritual standpoint, is that we are bringing energies through our body that are a lot more neutral, less polarized as well. Like just in terms of gender, you know, energetically we're both energies, right? So androgyny is kind of a new energy that we're playing out in the planet, and we're seeing it reflected in our youth, and their souls are energetically different. They're landing in the planet in a blueprint that we're not in. We're in a different energetic blueprint, right? We're actually part of, because we're here and we were here before, we're creating the next template that these new souls are dropping into. And at the same time that's happening, there is something evolving. The old paradigm is trying to keep it down, to not allow, to put the drag on the system, because what it comes down to power. I think most things come down to power. And I love listening to Carolyn Mays because she just says it so aptly. It's like it comes down to the power of love or the love of power, and which one do you want to adhere to? And it's the power of love when you're ensconced in the power of love, and you're coming from that place, it's going to be fierce and it's going to teach you lessons. And it's not about being right or wrong, right? It's discovery. Like what I hear in you is all these questions. I don't hear from you self-righteousness and this is the way it's going to be. It's like, really, can we all just find a way to love each other despite what we do, what I think is right, what you think is right, and without making everybody wrong if they don't agree with me, or if they don't do what I do, if the world according to me, it's like each one of us makes up what we call the world. And if it's out there, it's in here, because there's no separation like that. And so it's really like wrapping your mind around that. It's like, where is these battles that we see outside of us? Where is that going on within you? What is not healed in you that you get to look at, that I get to look at within myself, instead of pointing the finger at the circumstance outside of myself and making it wrong and making it bad. And if it wasn't for this group of people, well, I'd be living a much more lively, a thriving livelihood, and it's just not, it's not accurate.
No.
Yeah.
And just even, thinking about this coming from a place of love. And I know that definitely in the last 2 years, this awakening that's been happening, right? And this is, it's been going on much longer than that, but there's been like a real surgence of it in the last 2 years, and seeing maybe even 18 months, the energies in the world shifting. And and I'm not talking men and women, I'm talking about energy. So the feminine energy versus the masculine energy that we've had in our, sort of running the world, most places, they're clashing, right? And it comes from that fear. Yes, power, right? We don't want to lose the power that we have. And so what we do as humans then is we must push, even any nature will push down, will push back, will try to stop. And so as the feminine is rising, the masculine energy is pushing back.
Mhm.
And again, this is not men and women, this is energy.
Mhm.
And we're seeing the upheaval this is causing, right, as this is happening. And this is the polarization that we're seeing. Like,
Mhm.
people feel that they need to take a stand on the right and wrong,
Mhm.
their right and wrong. And that's
Mhm.
partly where the problem comes in. But it all comes down, I think, yes, power, but fear,
Mhm.
fear of change, fear of losing the power, fear of, I mean, our brains are hardwired to put any change in the fear category, right?
Mhm.
So whether it is learning something new, our brain is going to go, saber-toothed tiger, we're going to die. Ah,
Mhm. Oh, the
right?
body's doing that too, because it's not
Yes,
just brain, it's body, it's our enteric nervous system. So,
yes.
and it be the body sending the signal to the brain? Is it the brain taking in the information and feeding the information down into the body? Either way,
Hmm.
it works both ways, so either way, it's being seen as a threat. And to me, that's the resistance, because as you're talking, I'm getting a visual of, whenever, we're the truth of the matter is energy's always moving. Everything's always in constant change. And the illusion is that it's static.
Mhm.
And all we're really fighting about is an illusion.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if we can look past the brain and then the body's reaction, right? Or the body and the brain's reaction, whichever way, egg, chicken, and listen, which is your gut, which is your higher knowing spirit. That is where the answers are. But we
Mhm.
get so caught up in the body, in the brain, which doesn't have our best interest at heart. It always is in fear mode. And we get caught there and we don't actually look past that and listen. We're not listening. And I think if we could all learn to listen internally, right,
Mhm.
to spirit,
Mhm.
what a difference that would make.
Mhm.
Because that fear response is all external.
Yeah.
So flipping it so that we are coming from that internal would, I think, make all the difference.
Yeah, simply asking the question, what am I so afraid about?
Mm-hmm.
What am I so afraid about? Like, right, there is no saber-toothed tiger chasing me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting in my living room in front of the TV. What is the threat to
Mm-hmm.
me that I have to act out of fear and hate? And it's that viciousness. What are you protecting about yourself? Why is a belief system worth so much to you
Mm-hmm.
and a human life worth so little?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, a lot of what it comes down to. That question, like, really start to question that, and then when you get an email like you were talking about, you get an email in your inbox from someone like myself or from Larissa, and it triggers you. Ask yourself, why are her words so triggering to me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's take a beat. And am I making someone else wrong? It's self-responsibility with our words, and the thing is like, we are all allowed to say whatever we want to say, right? But we also have responsibility, right? So they say you can't, the way it's been put to us, you can't go into a crowded theater and yell fire, because it's totally, irresponsible. You can't say, well, it was my freedom of speech, I just felt like I needed to yell fire,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I caused so much harm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really, really being responsible with, what am I creating with my words as artists, right? This is connection with spirit. We get to connect in with ourselves as spirit, and develop the relationship with ourselves as multidimensional spiritual beings. It's not a gift that some of us have and some of us don't have. We're all human, we're all spirits in human bodies, and we're all part of a oneness. And that is what the rise in consciousness is that understanding, or that awareness that's growing, that's awakening. And what else is awakening is, how do I be as a multidimensional spirit in a three-dimensional body, in a world that's very polar and plays this stuff out? How do I make, not just about me, how do I make the world a better place because I'm in it? And I think these are great questions that we get to ask ourselves, and from a standpoint of being a creator, not just an artist that makes images. That is a part of it. And not that your art has to change the world, but it can totally change you, and you're the vehicle for change. When how you be in the world, how I be in the world, just energy changes energy, and your energy is felt. So you can, I was going to say, like, we can lie to ourselves and say we don't do these things, but we carry the energy of it. And so it's up to us to really go within and find where it is within us,
Yeah. And it just something you said right there too about, energy changes energy, but working on our own selves is all we can do. We're not going to change somebody else. Somebody else may change because of what you do, but we're not changing somebody else. And I often talk about this with my clients, because when we're doing healing work, we change, right? Our energy changes, how we move through the world changes. And it can be incredibly frightening because the things around us are changing. We are not changing those things. Those things are changing in response to our changes. We're not responsible for them, but people will fall away from our life. People will start to push back in different ways as we start to change. All we can do is look after our own self, take care of, our health, our healing, and move forward from that. And then people around us will either change, right? As in, they're going to behave in a new way around you, or they're going to fall away because they can't behave in a new way. And they can no longer behave in the old way with you. And so this is where a lot of people get stuck in their healing work, because it's frightening to have this change happen and to have what we know fall away. Even if it makes us miserable, it's what we know. And again, this is our brain kicking in and fear any change. So then we slide back. And that's why we end up doing this cha-cha of life, where we're, one step forward, two steps back, blah, 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 as we try to move through the world. But ultimately, we can only work on ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And if we could, like you said, question why we feel the way we do. I often ask this after we've done a creative exercise. What came up for you? How does it feel to do that? What more do you need to explore from this? Because it will bring things up when you create from that space. It is going to bring things up for you. You could ignore it, or you could tap into it and move forward with it, right? And that can be scary, but it's part of the healing journey that we take.
Yeah. And some of, what's dropping in for me as you're talking too is it's what's changing is our perceptions, because we're opening up to see more. And when you see more, you get different viewpoints of the same thing you may have been looking at. So for example, let's just take it inside and look at a belief system that you may be working on. And I know you've probably experienced this yourself, because we work on ourselves a lot, and it happens with me, but you bump up against something that you thought you solved, right? And you go, oh my God, this again, I thought I healed that. Well, healed doesn't mean fixed, right? And so if we start thinking about ourselves as moving in spirals, if we're moving in spirals and we're also opening up perception and we're opening up energy, we are going to bump into that belief system again when something happens in life, when with the timing for us to see it again with all the other things that we've gained along the way. So it's not that you did anything wrong. It's not that you didn't do enough of something or whatever. It's just, it's time for you to see it again from another angle, from another fractal perspective. You start thinking about your belief systems in less linear terms, as it's like just one thing that you're always going to run into and it's never going to go away, but it's a multifaceted, like diamond or a crystal, and that you're going to see it from another angle. Remember, our souls are here to learn something, right? And to see all angles. And so it doesn't mean you did anything wrong. If anything, it means you opened something up to be able to see it again. And everything that you freed, all the energy that you freed from all of the work that you did before, helps you see it. It's not, the button isn't as hot, right? It's like, it may be just like, 5 minutes that you spend in it, and you're ready to see what you need to see and move on. So where that one belief system used to just, maybe land you in bed with the covers pulled over your head for 5 days, is now maybe a 5-minute ordeal. So you can look at it like, well, I grew, right? And it's always, it's a fractal. They don't go away. We're in a pattern. We have to remember that we as souls came into the planet at a certain time, astrologically, everything was lined up perfectly just for your entry at that time that you chose. And we get to work with that. Those are things that we can't change, right? The time you were born, what you incarnated as, who you incarnated with, all those things. And so instead of thinking like, I'm going to heal it / fix it, it's never going to happen again, that it's a continual unfolding. And what is unfolding, for you in that process? Get curious about that. And, am I making myself wrong because I bumped into it again, or it popped up again? It's looking at it more like an artist, like it's an opportunity, and like as a creator, like, when you're painting, or you're making something on, paper or canvas, sometimes things happen in there that maybe was something unexpected, and you can fret about it, or you can kind of take a step back and go, oh, well, isn't this interesting? How do I want to use this as a creator? And the answers, there's no wrong answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a good analogy too, when you're creating something and say you drop your brush, right? And all of a sudden that picture that you've worked so hard on is got marks on it. And some people will crumple it up and throw it away. Other people will be like, oh, happy accident, it's now a bird.
Yeah.
Other people will be like, what is this telling me? What does, and how we perceive it, but then also what we do with the information. Right? I often ask, what lesson do I need to learn from this? What's the message in this? Things like that, to find out what more, so that I don't have to keep repeating, because I've been very good at that in my past about, I always say that I'm a go big or go home person, and I listen until I, get hit upside the head with a 2x4. And so what I've been trying to do is listen, so that I don't have to get hit with the 2x4, because it hurts. So what do I need to learn from this? Where is my direction in this? Because it's not somebody else or something else. I made a contract when I came here to follow a certain path, work on some, I believe, some certain specific things. Will it always be the same way I think it will be? No. But we will be redirected if we try to circumvent it. So working through it is a constant, like you said, and I love the spiral, because it's a constant. Even if we think we're finished with something, would we still be here if we were truly finished with it? And so there's going to be layers. And I'm not a real fan of the onion layers, but there is going to be layers or little knots, and they might become less and less. as we, like you said, instead of being 5 days under the covers, it could be 5-minute adjustment. But there's always going to be something there because we're constantly learning. And you're going to hopefully jump in on these chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at something Carol shared. We are self-similar patterns to planets as they make their spiral journey through space. Yeah, there's a great YouTube video that if you guys want to look up, the way the planets travel through space is a vortex. If you just not Google, but YouTube, in the search bar, put solar system vortex and see what comes up. It's such a cool graphic because they show what we've been taught, which is how the planets revolve around the sun, but then how our whole solar system moves as a vortex through the galaxy. It spirals and moves like a vortex, and that's the pattern of the universe, a pattern of creation. And so that's why when we the work that I've done in myofascial release and studying the body, what I've learned through that modality is we look at the body as a fractal, that as above, so below. We're not linear, but if we're so programmed for linear that it creeps in. I don't care how much you read, or how long you practice. And I've practiced that and taught it and worked at a very high level of that. And I still have moments where I have to go, oh yeah. So it's like, that's why I know that if it's in me with all of my experience and I can speak it and I can give talks on it and really get you to try and really get you to understand it, but I'm still human, and I'm still a human in a 3-dimensional experience, and I get to be real with myself. It doesn't mean that I don't know anything. It means that I have a program in there that is it's continually generated in our world. So this is the other part about, like, when we're doing our programming work and working on our belief systems, is that we're constantly bombarded in a world that people aren't working their programs. People aren't, people are stuck in a system. People are stuck in a paradigm. And so it may sometimes feel like, oh, this again, oh, this again, oh, this again. But that's where, again, we got to pay attention to what we're feeding ourselves. If we're going to sit in front of the news, we do need to know what's going on. We get to notice what the news is really all about. Right. We get to be mindful of what we feed our mind, what we put into our bodies via our mind, not just all the stuff we put in our mouth, for our health. It's what are you feeding your mind, which is feeding your body. And that's another huge part. It's so funny. I'm like, wow, it feels like we're so away from where we started, but I feel like we can't just say, like, this is what's going on, this is the problem, and end it there, because there's so much going on. And that's what speaks into the fractal. Bella says, biggest problems in life are not solved, but outgrown. Love that. Yeah. Carol says, an opportunity to be in the dance with it once again. Yeah. It's how we are with it too, right? Our relationship with ourselves, with our problems, with what we're healing, with the outside world. Yeah, totally. Great stuff, guys. I love hearing what you guys add into the conversation.
I think it's important too, what you said, about that sort of collective energy, is that you're right, as individuals, we are working on our healing or not. We all have our own things, but as a collective, we are working on our healing as well, right? So, and it can only be as strong as the collective. And when we have these individual wounds, it contributes to the collective wounds. And we are seeing a shift, more and more people working towards that awakening of energy that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you notice it more when you're part of it, right? Maybe you notice it more when you're part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, then that's also going to bring the upheaval. Because I know for my own self, when confronted, I get super angry at myself, right? When I don't behave in a way that I think I should, or maybe somebody else doesn't think I should, and then they get angry. So that's the response that comes up, right? Is that anger response. And it's frustration, it's, expectations really is what it comes down to. And when we can then, okay, maybe we have that visceral response, but then take a step back, like you were saying, and just allow ourselves to think about what's actually happening,
Mm-hmm.
to sit in the feeling of what's happening so that we
Mm-hmm.
can examine it. And I think that's a big part of what's missing often is we don't take that step back to examine.
Mm-hmm.
And we just keep going forward. And
Yeah,
it's like,
punching
whoa.
forward.
Yeah.
That's very masculine too, by the way, right? That masculine
Yes.
energy. We do it too, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's not a men, again, not a men versus women.
Yeah.
It's the energy that we're in. But
Yeah.
that's our cultural energy that we're
Mm-hmm.
in.
Yeah.
And so, of course, that's how we're going to react.
Mm-hmm.
So, allowing ourselves the space, which is a very feminine energy, the rest, the contemplation, the
Mm-hmm.
stepping into intuition is such an important part. And as we can do that more, take that pause, take that breath. I mean, they're realizing how important breath is. I mean, we all
Mm-hmm.
technically know, right? We need to breathe to live. But the deep breathing, taking the moment, and how restorative that is for our body, our brain, but also just for the energy that we're putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you stopping to breathe and reflect?
Mm-hmm.
Is such an important part.
Yeah. Yeah. And in our fast-paced world too, we make other things important, the need to make money, which is a survival driven need, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's when we step out of ourselves as creator, when we don't see the power we have as creator, and let the fear drive us in our, how we're choosing to spend our time. And it's really interesting because it doesn't take much time at all to pause and take a breath,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, I had to do this and I had to do that. And I had to get here and I had to get there. And I had the kids and the blah, 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 blah. Supper's got to be on the table at 5:00 and it's, 5:25. Oh my God, I have no time for me. And it's like, that's the world that patriarchal thinking created, right? Your only value is what you can contribute, and your worth comes from how much you can make, and how many hours you spend killing yourself to make money. And it's what finding a different language for value, or a different, I don't know, I don't have the right word for that, but like, how else can we value ourselves versus dollars and cents, versus how much work we do in a day, versus, is it of any value to sit and meditate? It is, because if it makes you a calmer person and it changes your vibrational frequency and what you're putting out into the world, and it's making you a nicer human being, then it has a ton of value,
Mm-hmm.
And I think we get to reprioritize, that value system where we place value, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could go into a whole thing about value just
No
in around,
kidding. Yeah.
you know, whether you have money, whether you're a man versus a woman, whether you're educated, like there's just so many things that we put value on.
Mm-hmm.
Where we don't seem to put value is on how we treat other people,
Mm-hmm.
how we move in the world, or the vibration that we're putting out. That is not where we put our value. And it really begs the question, why not?
Yeah.
because what difference does it make in the grand scheme of things how much money you have? You're still going to die.
Yep.
Right? But what do you do with that money? What do you do with that money? What difference does it make if you went to an Ivy League school? Yeah, you might get a better job. But if you're not using the energy of love, what difference does it make what school you went to? But we put value on those things because of the masculine energy of our society. And it really does, cause pause in my own self of to think about why. Because it doesn't make any logical sense to me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it sets up something conversely too, because then you look at like the people that hold that belief system. Well, we hold the people, I'm going to say like what I grew up in exactly what you described, where your value and whether you were a good person or a bad person was directly reflected on the clothes you wore, what your parents did for a living, and what your address was, and it was really perplexing to me because it's like, you don't even like know me. You're going to judge me based on what I'm wearing, where I came from, where the bus drops me off, basically. And then you're just going to write me off. And because of money, right? But then what it's done for me is it gives me an opposite relationship of my relationship with money, which is, well, if that's what having money is like, I don't want that. And I don't want to be like anyone who is like that. And so if I see someone who has money, well, I'm not even going to talk to them because I already know what they're going to be like. Right. And so that's protection too. And then what else am I doing is I'm shutting off a flow of abundance. I'm not going to let myself expand and, allow for abundance to come in. And I don't mean just monetary abundance. I mean, all abundance in all forms. We just happen to put a material, we live in a material world. So we put a material picture on it, that it's, abundance doesn't matter. There's the universe is abundant. It's just our belief that it's not, that it's for them, not for us. And, if you have it, then,
yeah,
I don't think I can like you anymore.
and it is really that, right? And you see that a lot with women, especially, will block that flow of abundance. And it's true, abundance is not just monetary. But we will block the flow of abundance because we are the lesser valued. And so we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be like those rich people. We don't want to be like those masculine energy people. So we're going to block that.
Yeah.
And we block so much else because of it.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we even recognize often. I mean, if you do the work, but then it's still a journey that you have to go on to heal it.
Yep.
But it is so ingrained in us, in our culture, especially as women, most minorities, right? People of color, people of different religious beliefs, that whole idea that I think mostly in North America, it could be different elsewhere as well, or the same elsewhere, I mean, but that masculine energy, which of course most white men fit into, not all, but most often fit into that, puts their value higher. And so for others who are not valued, then they do not value themselves as much. I'm not talking about individuals, but as a whole.
Yeah. I think when we were talking last week, I had an example of my sister-in-law, and my mother experienced this too, is that, my sister-in-law is been working at this company for, I don't know, almost 30 years. And she has a male counterpart who makes more than she makes. And she's been at the company. She pretty much runs the company because she knows the ins and outs, and she's been there through the whole growth process. But she makes less than someone who's underneath her because he's a man. And this is what she was told, She has a husband. She's a second income. She doesn't need to make any more money than she's making. My mother was told the same thing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, really? Like, you're not being paid for the value you hold of the job that you do and the importance that it is and how well you do the job. You're getting paid based on whether you're married, whether your husband has a job. It doesn't matter what he makes. You know, in my mother's case, she was making more money than my father was making, but that didn't matter. She had a husband. And so the thought was, well, you're just a second income. You don't need to be making that. It doesn't matter that you're running the whole place and that you do a really good job and that the customers all love you, you know, and rave about you. It's, you're a woman and you have a husband and you can be taken care of. You know, you're just a second income. And that's ridiculous. And that it's still going on.
And whether you personally have a second income or not, it often, and it's still going on, women get paid less because, right, men might have a family or they have other people to support. And it's like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
But that is how value works in our society.
Yeah.
Until we make a change to that. So
yeah. And the other side of like why we get to make money as women and command and demand more, what we're worth, is because that's also how we get to change the landscape. You know, if we're told we're not valued and we start to play that out, it doesn't change. And so we do get to take a stand in there too, you know, and if you are a person, and we all do it, if someone has something that you think you want and you go, well, it must be nice, just notice what your self-talk is around that. And if there's jealousy, don't make yourself wrong for it. Just notice that it's there, because that's something that you can open up as to that will lead you to a belief system that is like playing out on a big cultural plane. And if we change it on this inner level, we start to take action on a bigger level, we help change the collective belief. And you know, I was going to say it's going to take time, but the fact is we don't know how exponential the growth on that is going to be, you know.
I feel like it's going to speed up. It's going to speed up. Like we look back 100 years and we think, oh, we've hardly made it a dent. But I feel like it is going to be exponential as we see this awakening happening. And I just saw Carol's comment there about being told a doctoral candidate by my major professor, and that my first priority was to support my husband as he was trying to get tenure, that I couldn't have it all. I'm just going to breathe right there because and this is still going on. Like, I don't know how long ago this was, Carol, but I'm assuming not that long ago. It just dumbfounds me that this is still a thing, but it is, right? It is. And I know there are states, not the states, but there are certain states that have actually passed laws where you can discriminate against people. And, you know, like for whatever the reason is. What I think will be interesting to see play out is when the people who made those laws are discriminated against. I will be interesting to see what happens with that. Whole other story, but we have come to our hour. It's amazing how fast our time goes.
It is.
Oh, 30 years ago. Okay, but still, yes. It
still happens. Yeah.
Yeah,
but it still
does
happens.
Still happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
30 years. I mean, it's funny because you go, wow, 30 years ago, but like think back in your life, because I know we're around the same age, and you go, really wasn't that long ago, you know. It really 30 years, it doesn't seem that long ago. And so it's still not right. And it is still happening. Sorry, I just had to chime in on that one.
It's well, I want to thank everybody for being here today. It's just it's so nice when we have people jump in. I mean, we'll gladly sit here and chat, you know, nonstop anyway, but it's wonderful when people chime in and join us. And Deb, is there anything you've got going on that you want to let people know about?
Yeah, actually, I'm working on putting together a 1-day virtual retreat that's going to be happening. I'm not sure yet if it's at the end of the last weekend of August or the first weekend of September, but somewhere in that little area there. It's called Voice. I ran it last year. It was, I really liked it. What I like about it is the opportunity to work on our voice through and learn different tools of how to open up like the physical parts of us, the energetic parts of us, not just here, but how it relates to our whole being and how we create in the world and how we can free ourselves up if we just start working, you know, let this be the entry point. So it's going to be a really great, a great retreat. And that's what, start looking for that in my emails. I'm going to start talking about that a little bit. And this actually kind of feeds into what we were talking about, because we need to use our voices, we need to be heard. We need to hear ourselves. We need to start opening up this channel and letting our expression flow. And I did like last year when I launched it, I did some research about the numbers of women who have some sort of thyroid issue or some sort of issue right in the throat area. And the numbers were super high. It was like 4 in 5 women will get diagnosed with some sort of thyroid condition in their lifetime. And my belief is that we're so closed down here. There's no energy flowing. So energy will express. If it doesn't express out, it'll express in. And so, I think, let's learn to create outside of ourselves instead of inside. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And how about you? What do you got going on?
Well, coming up, we're going to be doing Healing with Love. We're
Yes.
going to do a whole summit on it. All it took was that one sort of incident for me to go, wow, okay, I'm going to use my voice a little more for this. So in September, we will be doing Healing with Love, bringing together a diverse group of people to talk about love and how we are the same and how we are different and how we just need to come from a place of love. So I'm really looking forward to that because I know you're going to be there, and quite a few other really amazing speakers as well. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that interview with you.
Yep.
Of course.
Yep, I can't wait. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us. And yes, Carol, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for chiming in, because what you put in was really helpful. So thank you for sharing your experience with all of us too.
Yes. And I am going to say, have a wonderful